In Boca Chica, Texas, the most powerful machine in human history is waiting. Starship version 3. It is 500 feet of stainless steel ambition, carrying the entire weight of NASA's dream to return to the moon. But there is a massive, uncomfortable question no one wants to ask. What if it fails? What if the next launch ends in a catastrophic fireball? This wouldn't just be a bad day for a billionaire, it would trigger a domino effect that could shatter the Artemis program, freeze our lunar return for half a decade, and completely rewrite the winner of the 21st century space race. Welcome to the worst-case scenario. To understand why a V3 failure is so dangerous, look at the trap of scale. In the 1960s, the moon lander was a tiny taxi, but for the 21st century, NASA wanted a skyscraper. Starship version 3 is designed to land 100 tons of cargo on the lunar surface. It's an engineering marvel, but it creates a massive single point of failure. NASA's own SLS rocket can get astronauts to lunar orbit, but it has no legs. It cannot land. If Starship V3 isn't there to meet them, the mission is dead on arrival. There is no backup lander waiting in a hangar. No plan B. But the real hardware nightmare isn't the landing. It's the gas station in the sky. Because V3 is so massive, it burns almost all its fuel just reaching Earth's orbit. To actually reach the moon, SpaceX must pull off a logistical miracle: orbital refueling. It requires a fleet of nearly 20 V3 tankers launched in rapid succession to fill a single moon-bound ship. If just one launch fails, or if the cryogenic fuel transfer glitches in zero-G, the entire mission architecture collapses into a billion-dollar pile of scrap metal. Let's run the worst-case simulation. Starship V3 ignites, but a catastrophic anomaly occurs. A massive fireball destroys the vehicle and rains debris over the Texas launch site. What happens the next morning? The dominoes begin to fall. First, the legal freeze. The FAA will immediately ground the entire Starship fleet. But it's not just a technical review. A failure of this magnitude triggers intense environmental assessments. Federal agencies will demand microscopic investigations into the debris fields and blast impacts. That guarantees a grueling 12 to 18 months of absolute paralysis. No tests, no flights. Second, the infrastructure. If the launch mount and the massive Mechazilla catching tower are severely damaged, you aren't just building a new rocket. You are rebuilding a custom, one-of-a-kind robotic facility. Fabricating new catching arms, repairing shattered cryogenic plumbing, and recertifying the complex systems will consume another full year. Third, the political shockwave. NASA is funded by Congress, and politicians have very little patience for exploding billions. A high-profile disaster will give critics all the ammunition they need to question why NASA abandoned traditional rockets for a high-risk gamble, threatening the funding of the Artemis program itself. But the final, deadliest domino is the physics. Remember those 20 refueling launches needed for a single moon trip? To make that work, SpaceX needs a flawless, high-frequency launch cadence. Why? Because the ultra-cold liquid methane fuel naturally boils off and vents into space over time. If you can't launch tankers fast enough, the fuel in orbit simply evaporates before the lunar ship is even full. If the V3 program is grounded for 2 years, achieving that launch cadence before the end of the decade becomes a mathematical fantasy. A single V3 explosion doesn't just delay a test flight, it completely breaks the logistics chain, pushing humanity's return to the moon back by 3 to 5 agonizing years. But a 5-year delay isn't just a pause on a calendar. It is a vacuum. And in the vacuum of space, as in politics, nothing stays empty for long. While the United States grapples with a grounded fleet and a shattered launch pad, the lunar surface won't stay lonely. For decades, we viewed the moon as a solo sprint, but today, we are in a two-way fight. While NASA bet everything on the skyscraper of Starship V3, the China National Space Administration has been quietly building a very different path. China's lunar architecture doesn't rely on a 100-ton stainless steel giant. They're using a more traditional, modular approach. Smaller rockets, more frequent launches, and simpler docking procedures. It's slower, sure. It's less ambitious, but it is resilient. If the Artemis program is paralyzed until the 2030s, the first woman on the moon might not be wearing an American flag on her shoulder. We aren't just talking about a lost decade, we are talking about a permanent shift in the global balance of power. The lunar South Pole, with its precious water ice, will belong to the first nation that can actually stay there. If Starship V3 fails, the US doesn't just lose a rocket, it loses the keys to the most valuable real estate in the solar system. NASA would then face an impossible choice. Do they bail out SpaceX and dump more billions into a crippled infrastructure? Or do they retreat to old space, crawling back to traditional contractors to build a smaller, safer, but far less capable lander? Either choice signals the end of the golden age of commercial space. The dream of a self-sustaining lunar city would be replaced by the reality of a cautious, bureaucratic crawl. In the end, the failure of Starship V3 wouldn't just be a technical anomaly, it would be a mirror, forcing us to look at the fragility of our own ambition. We have built a mission architecture so massive and so interconnected that it has no room for error. We are tightrope walkers without a net. If we lose V3, we don't just lose a vehicle. We lose the momentum of an entire generation that was told the moon was finally within reach. We go back to being a species that looks at the moon through telescopes rather than one that walks through its dust. The moon doesn't care about our logistics chains, our legal freezes, or our political infighting. It only respects the cold math of the journey. A V3 explosion would remind us that the road to the stars isn't paved with promises. It's paved with the wreckage of those who tried and failed. The question isn't whether we can reach the moon. The question is, if we fall now, will we ever have the courage to stand back up?